Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Loren Gailey, and this is our first ever video webinar. So we are pleased to have you here, and in just a moment we will turn on our video shot. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. It is my privilege and honor to introduce you today to Dave and Erina Cowan here in Boulder, Colorado. Hi, Dave and Erina. Welcome, Dave and Erina. We're going to talk about the spiritual art of dowsing. And this is our first video webinar, and it's really exciting. We want to show you the dowsing effects today. That's why we're joining you all with us here over this video streaming event. So thank you. So I'm going to turn this over to Dave and Erina, and let us know. Here we go. All right, thank you. This is Dowsing Beyond Duality, and Dave and Erina are the authors, the co-authors of this wonderful book. Dave is also the author of Navigating the Collapse of Time. So they have great information to impart to you today, and I'm going to pass it over to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Well, we're really happy to be able to share in this online retreat with you today, and it's really the first time that we have done it like this, and it seems like a great format. We're very excited about it and excited to have all of you that are out there joining us today with us.
Yes, and the program that we've planned for you today, just to give you an outline, is we have a short presentation that will be sharing with you to give you a basis, a common understanding of the principles and practices as we understand dowsing works, and also to get everybody actually up and running. So we encourage any of you that are watching this who want to actually play along and try these things out for yourself to find some kind of, if you don't have an actual pendulum, that's okay. To find any kind of an object that you can use, like a necklace or even a keychain. If you'd like to access that now while we're doing this brief introduction so that you can play along. After the presentation, we've actually prepared for this class together a set of things that we're going to clear for us as a group. So we actually went in ourselves and asked, what are the most beneficial clearings that we can offer through this webinar for everyone that's involved here. So some of the things that we clear may be more specific to certain individuals, but collectively we came up with a bunch of really fun things, not just as demonstrations, but also as real-life opportunities to experience what this dowsing is all about.
Yes, and we're going to have you join us as we get to that clearing part. By that point, we will have you up and running with using the pendulum or whatever you're using as a pendulum. And we'll have you join us in those clearings. So it really is going to be a jam-packed couple of hours here, and I guess we'll start up with the PowerPoint.
Sure, sure. Go ahead, Lauren. There we go.
Thank you.
And next slide. So again, there's some foundations around this whole practice of dowsing. And, when you talk to dowsing, people generally have some ideas about it that they've heard about or witnessed or seen. And there's many different approaches to dowsing. As a matter of fact, it goes all the way back to ancient Egyptian records and probably further back as in those times, considered what was called a divination system, or a way to access information that wasn't, available to the conscious mind. So a lot of these early human cultures were much more in tune with the signals of nature and were more aware of themselves as being an inherent part of nature. And as such, they felt that nature had important information to impart if there was but a means to access it. So people discovered that they needed systems in order to interpret some of these more subtle signals from nature, and that's, of course, how dowsing evolved. So what we call classic dowsing is this early form of dowsing where we actually interface with nature to get information that's helpful in making decisions, in finding objects, and this kind of thing. So the early form of classic dowsing, which in most people's minds today is still what we think of when we think of dowsing was actually very practical. For things like, finding water sources, good soil, lost items, this type of thing. And plastic dowsing is still primarily used in that fashion. I lost the slide here. There we go. So what happens with plastic dowsing is we actually create a physical feedback loop between our own body's energy systems and how they express through our nervous systems with the subtle energies in nature. Okay, and I think on the next slide there's an actual picture of a couple of traditional dowsing tools that you might be familiar with. I remember a few years ago having some surveyors come to the property to find a missing or a broken water pipe, and that was my first experience. I think you had a similar experience.
That was my first experience too, looking for a new water source on our property.
Right, and of course the moving water under the land would generate a subtle electromagnetic field, and our body also has an electromagnetic field. So these tools were simply ways of fine-tuning, you might say, our own natural abilities to tune into nature's forces. Go ahead now with the next slide.
So classic dowsing then is actually having to do with when the conscious mind puts forth a question to the unconscious mind, or the connection, I should say, the interface between our mind and the environment around us. There's a question, there's something that we want an answer to. And so what classic dowsing is actually creating a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, or what we call the superconscious mind. And the superconscious mind implies it's not only talking about what we would call our own subconscious mind, but it's really talking about the whole collective mind. So classic dowsing is that bridge, provides us that bridge to get information of everything that has possibly ever been in consciousness and will be in consciousness. All information is available. The superconscious mind scans the environment via subtle energy sensitivity, connection, and a relaxed physiology. So what that means is, and we'll talk about this as we get started with dowsing together, is we want to relax our mind and our state of being while we are dowsing to get the most accurate answers. We want to bypass the beta mind, or that busy part of our mind that is always on the go, thinking, what's next, what just happened, where should I be, that crazy monkey mind that we all have. So we relax that, we get into what's called an alpha state of mind for the most accuracy, or the best accuracy, I should say, when we are dowsing. And therefore, the minute we access that relaxed state of mind, our whole body relaxes, our nervous system relaxes simultaneously. That allows for the communication and the action of our pendulum with the micromusculature, which David will go over a bit more in a second. It'll actually relax things to the point where there'll be a finesse in response with the information coming through our nervous system and responding through the pendulum we're holding. So the autonomic nervous system is really tied in with this. We relax the mind, the nervous system relaxes, and we end up getting, I guess I'll finish this on this slide, so we end up getting, well, you can continue afterwards. However, we get information passed through the nervous system, and it comes through in our micromusculature as we are holding the pendulum. It will create a movement, and that's all because we have relaxed and we've started accessing information coming in from the superconscious mind. And what would you like to add to that?
How do you make your lips move like that?
Isn't that great?
Oh.
Yeah. Years of practice. It's been a lifetime of practicing this.
Next slide, please. Okay, there we go. So again, for this form of dowsing, which in the last slide it mentioned it was similar to muscle testing, there is actually what we call a psycho or mental physiological explanation. And one of our intentions in writing this book and bringing this form of dowsing forward is to bring it out of the era of mysticism and divination and these types of the idea that there's mysteries or hidden knowledge. We now have a science. We now have a means of explaining both to the irrational, I suppose, or the intuitive mind, as well as the rational mind, to help accept and understand these things. So part of our mission is to bring dowsing into the 21st century, and we now have the tools in order to explain it in terms that the modern mind can accept and begin to work with. So again, let's go back and look at some of the physiological explanations for how dowsing actually works. The conscious mind makes up less than 10% of the total mind. When we say we're out of our mind, we're actually right, because what we call the mind is a very small part of the entire capabilities that we have. It expresses mainly through the motor nerves, moving us into action. So when I have an intention, for example, to reach for a glass of water, the brain, through the central nervous system, activates the appropriate muscles, and I get the response I want. Now, this superconscious mind, that part that lies below the surface of our conscious awareness, is actually doing a lot of things right in this very moment that we're not aware of, and it makes up that other 90% of the total mind. For example, your superconscious mind right now is running your breathing. It's beating your heart. It's balancing out your nutrition. It's performing trillions of biochemical exchanges in every second in every cell of your body. Now, if you had to consciously be aware of all that, you'd be pretty preoccupied with just staying alive. But again, this is one of the aspects of the superconscious mind that runs below the surface of our awareness. And the superconscious mind expresses mainly through the autonomic nervous system. Now, the autonomic nervous system works more on the micromuscles and some of the systems of the body. A good example of how this autonomic nervous system works is the fight or flight response. When the conscious mind perceives a physical threat, let's say you're walking down the street and there's a tiger on the loose, the superconscious mind kicks in with all types of automatic physiological reactions to prepare you physically to either deal with that challenge or hightail it down the road. And this, again, is an aspect of the superconscious mind that does not need a conscious decision to actually be functioning. And of course, in our view, the superconscious mind is actually operating not only for ourselves as individuals, but it also is an aspect of the collective, as the next slide will show you. So this is a wonderful model to keep in mind when we talk about these levels of mind. If you think of the top of the iceberg there as the conscious mind, the part that thinks that that's all there is, because it can't see below the surface. But the vast majority of that mind is functioning below conscious awareness. But notice also that that superconscious mind is connected via the media of water to all other seemingly separated icebergs. So it's through that connection, the circuitry below the surface, that our superconscious mind actually has access to all of the knowledge, all of the experience, all of the information that has ever passed through a human mind in all times and dimensions. And I know this is mind-blowing, but Deepak Chopra many years ago called this aspect of mind the access to the cosmic computer. So when we douse, we are literally using our conscious intention, our question, you might say, as the library card, which then gives us access to this level of information, this limitless resource, and then brings that information back to conscious awareness through predetermined physical signals. Go ahead. Next slide.
Easy for you to say. Okay. Perfect. All right. And we'll move on to the next slide and talk a little bit more about the brain being the physical component and processor, actually, for what information is coming in, excuse me, from the mind, which is the quantum aspect. The superconscious mind is connected, again, as we've been saying, to the vast ocean of awareness, the one mind or the collective consciousness. In that photograph that we saw on the last slide with that iceberg and only the tip of it being small and visible above the surface, excuse me, and then it really forms this much bigger structure below the surface of the water, we might say that the superconscious mind, because we know that the iceberg is simply frozen water, right? I mean, if it melted, it actually then just becomes part of all the water around it. In fact, there is no separation between that iceberg and that water around it. So that we might look at that superconscious mind as being that entire field under the iceberg, including all that water. All that is, okay, anything that is in consciousness is in that field. And this is also what some refer to as the quantum field, the field of awareness that we are all part of. There is nothing that you can think or do or emote that does not actually have some impact on every living being. Our very essence, our presence in this world is simply a part of one flowing, beautiful ocean of creativity, and we have our what seems to be our unique experiences of it, but we are part of that vast ocean of the superconscious mind. The mind is non-local expression of awareness. So the mind is not constricted to a physical body. It is not constricted to, if we are part of this one mind that extends and is vast and is all of consciousness, as us being part of that, we have access to all of that. Your mind is part of this vastness and is not limited to the brain or the nervous system or this body.
Or time or space.
Or time or space. So there's no restrictions there, which as you'll see as we get into the dowsing, we play around with that, with time and space, because when we tap into the superconscious mind, we're not restricted by those linear concepts. So your mind is a library card to this cosmic computer or this vast awareness. Receiving this information involves letting go of all expectation and conditioned thoughts. Our conditioned thoughts and our expectation are simply contractions or constrictions in the flow of energy moving fluidly through that field, that vast field. Our conditioning is simply in the thoughts we have as a part of, I should say, as a result of this conditioning that each one of us has and operates somehow differently with. What that is simply an accumulation of thoughts that we have identified with and created our experience of separate being with, right, and how we experience the world at large. And so that part needs to be loosened up around, or our ability to let go of what we think something needs to look at then allows us to go beyond that limitation of really what is called the ego mind, right? My conditioned self is limited, small, and egoic. So we're going to play around with this tool today and show you how you can start letting go of those self-made boundaries and tap into infinite possibilities.
Wonderful. Next slide, please. Now,
beautiful.
And the next slide, please.
Beautiful flower.
So, again, a lot of these ideas, folks, some of you may be familiar with them, and some of them may be brand new to you. We're not too concerned with, wrapping your head around each and every one of these ideas. Take the ideas that resonate with you and that work for you in the moment, and don't worry about the ones that don't. Because, again, we're all getting exactly what we need simply by showing up. Erina and I, we work with individual clients as well. And often we tell them, just by showing up, you've done half the work. And this willingness to expand our understanding, the willingness to know a little bit more about ourselves, really, is the primary criteria. So don't worry about a lot of these ideas. And again, if they do interest you, our book, which is available, in most bookstores and Amazon, etc., goes into a lot of these things in much more detail. So again, just relax and take what works for you. What doesn't, that's okay. So we've been describing classic dowsing as dowsing has been practiced for millennia. And we're going to talk now about a new form of dowsing that we call active dowsing. And as we explained in the book, and as I learned from my teacher, a fine gentleman by the name of Raymond Grace, this kind of active dowsing wasn't necessarily always available to us on this planet. And the reason being is because it actually represents this deeper understanding of our connection on this quantum level. And the sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce many years ago, back in the 1930s, actually made a prediction that a new energy would come to the Earth around 1996 or 97 that would connect us all on a much deeper level and also make this form of healing at a distance more available and more powerful. Now, of course, Edgar Cayce had passed on by this time, but many of the people who were following his teachings and also many of the dowsers who were working with Raymond Grace at the time began to notice in that very year a definite change in their ability to affect others at a distance when their intention was pure, when their intention was loving and for healing. And so, again, it's very exciting to be here at this time where the human race is literally evolving into a unified being. We've heard terms in spirituality of unity consciousness and oneness. Well, these are no longer just concepts. These are actually becoming our experience. So active dowsing is one way of tapping into this new level of connectedness for the exact purpose of healing. So as we mentioned, classic dowsing is mostly about getting information, and if that's all a person does with dowsing, they have a tremendous tool and a tremendous asset. But the active dowsing is where we actually step in and participate in changing outcomes, changing qualities, and changing probabilities. We actually become more of conscious co-creators of the future rather than just deciders and map followers, if you will. So the superconscious mind is able to project focused intent into material manifestation. It's really about our empowerment, isn't it? And our stepping into that. And this, again, is based on the scientific principles that everything in existence is made of the same stuff. This was one of Einstein's great insights and gifts to us, was the understanding that everything comes from the same source of energy, which he described as light. This light vibrates at different octaves or different frequencies, and therefore manifests as the different levels of existence, both material and non-material. Even thought itself is a form of this energy, and it is measurable as such. You can hook up a EEG biofeedback device, for example, and actually read the electrical energy coming out of the brain as we experience thought. So thought as energy can affect any other form of energy in this universal energy soup that we live in. And what we find is that this energy of creation, this energy of newness, will actually follow your intention. It's like your thought is a laser beam that projects a possible future, and the whole rest of the energy of the universe recognizes that and begins to move in that direction to literally manifest what it is we desire. And this whole principle of the energetic universe was wrapped up, of course, in Einstein's formula, energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. So again, this is one of the scientific principles that we embrace. And the more we have this solid foundation and understanding in the physiology, in the science of dowsing, the more we can relax into it and accept our own power. One of the things that many dowsers tell us, especially ones who come to our class who have already been dowsing to a degree, is a major roadblock is their confidence. They're not quite sure that they're, that they're totally detached from the outcome, that they're not getting the results they want, etc. So these understandings help to release us to an appreciation of what's really going on deeper and subtler levels as we douse.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide, please.
We're going to go into the idea of duality and why we call our system Dowsing Beyond Duality. We're going to explore this together. I wanted to just add something to what David was just saying in terms of the active dowsing. I've had folks say to us, ask us in our classes, well, can't I just really make these changes happen with my clear intention, just consciously shift the patterns without using a pendulum? The answer to that is, of course you can. It's really, the pendulum is nothing more than a tool to use as an extension of our consciousness. However, there is another thing going on with it. It's not just a focal point. And here we get to try out seeing how this video will show. You can see my pendulum. So let me get used to this for a second. There's a little bit of lag time here. Okay, so I have to hold it up. It's a little slow. There we go. See that pendulum? Well, when we make a spin with this pendulum, which we are going to be doing together, it is creating a little mini vortex. And in the center of that vortex, just like in the center of a tornado, there is a still point. In that still point, it actually becomes what we call a multi-dimensional portal. There's stillness. It's a field of pure potential. So when I create that field with this pendulum and this still point in the center, what is happening is that I drop a clear intention into that center point. That's where I drop it. In other words, just using this as a carrier wave, if you will. I drop an intention in, and when I drop that intention in, this still point in the center creates an opportunity for breaking of wave patterns, for a discontinuation of old waveforms or manifestation, whether that's something physical, mental, emotional, or circumstances in our life. Everything is energy, so everything is made up of energy waves that we can talk about in waves or particles. Whatever that is, however that pattern is, the minute we actually use our pendulum to create this stillness or pure potential field and drop our clear intention in, letting go of anticipation and allowing for what's going to happen, we create what's called a phase shift or a breaking of these old wave patterns to allow for something new to be created. So it's pretty powerful. So the pendulum helps as a tool for literally creating a shift in patterns.
Another benefit of using a tool, and as Erina said, it's an extension of our intention as well as our physical response, is it does give the conscious mind something to focus on.
That too, yeah.
Something to chew on, kind of like a dog, needs a bone to chew. Sometimes the conscious mind, because the conscious mind will never be 100% convinced that any of this is true. It's simply operating in a different paradigm. So we use the pendulum also as a means to get agreement, at least a degree of agreement between the conscious and the superconscious mind by literally creating a prop that will give the conscious mind an idea of what's going on, that there is actually energy moving, etc. And so it's also very helpful for others who you're working with to actually see a physical manifestation of the work that you're doing on the non-physical realm.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of benefits to using the pendulum. And what we have found with it is, and we work with other tools and techniques, but what we have found with it is that it's quick to the chase. It changes patterns very quickly. And again, it allows for a grounding of belief, if you will, by using that tool to confirm what's coming up with your questions and also in the patterns that you're shifting. Sorry, Ray, we're dropping the phone over here. Anyway, let's move on to the idea of duality now. And duality, so we're going to mention a little bit about duality and non-duality so you can understand really what we feel is the heart of the benefits to dowsing and how we can take this tool that has been used really for thousands of years in many different ways and how we can use it also as a proving tool to show ourselves that and teach ourselves that what is real is never threatened, and what's unreal doesn't exist anyway, so it can never hurt us, and we can shift patterns easily. So duality is the coexistence of opposites. So we created this life on Earth that we're having together in a dualistic frame. There's an opposite to everything. There's light and dark, black and white, good and bad, and it goes on and on and on. There's opposites to everything. We've even created it down to opposite hemispheres in the brain. There's a right and left hemisphere, and they do two separate, even though they work together, particularly when we focus on allowing for that to happen. There's different functions of both sides of those hemispheres. So this is what we've been playing with. It's a result of how we perceive things. We see and we judge our experiences. Every experience we're having, we have opinions about it, right? And that's duality for you. The conscious mind carves up reality to make sense of being in physicality. So here we are, we were just talking about how we are part of this one collective field of awareness, and yet we see ourselves as separate from each other, and we see things as different. We do see nighttime, and then we see daytime, and we see one experience as being good, the next one as being bad. It is really how we have processed the experiences that we go through. We've condensed it down to compartmentalizing our experiences, quantifying them as good or bad, or putting labels on them. And in doing this, we have, what we've really done is we've secured separate identification. Each one of us, through this process, is able to experience life as a separate being. We've created separation as our experience, as the purpose of our experience. And that is why we started perceiving things the way we do, and quantifying and qualifying everything and creating opposites for everything. It really is for the sole purpose of securing individual experiences, or the experience of being a separate self, right? As a separate part of this conscious field, this collective field of awareness. These artificial divisions of reality create contrast, comparison, judgment, conflict, disharmonies, and all perceived problems. If you can recall that beautiful image that we showed earlier about that iceberg again, we could even look at that. We can use that as another analogy too. That iceberg in that vast ocean, that frozen iceberg, also can be used to represent our individual sense of self in the vast ocean of creation, right? We've frozen up or latched on to our opinions and our judgments and everything else, and we've hardened ourselves, if you will, like an iceberg, to experience that I'm separate from that ocean. And yet when I melt away those beliefs, when I allow them to start dissolving, what happens to that iceberg? It just goes back into that vastness of ocean, doesn't it?
Hits the Titanic and sinks.
It hits the Titanic and it sinks, of course, instead of the Titanic this time. Exactly. So us letting go of our beliefs, by the way, is like melting the iciness of ourself as separate icebergs. We don't get lost in that ocean. We just become a more vibrant, co-creative partner in that ocean, if you will, without restriction. Now we're able to move in our molecules globally, not just be stuck and frozen in one little spot. So duality equals illusion. We've created the illusion of separate self, even though we're part of that vast ocean. Conflict is always between illusions. So as long as we maintain that we need, above all, to secure our individual self and hold on to our beliefs and our illusory, you notice the word lose is in there, illusory? Illusory. So as long as we agree to hold tight to these, we will stay frozen and fixed in our opinions, and we will be guaranteed to have one conflict after another. So now let's go to the next slide and start getting into some ideas about how we can break free from that.
So non-duality can be seen as kind of the soil out of which something new can evolve. And what we call this something new, of course, is non-duality. Non-duality is very hard to describe because even description itself is a dualistic function. So we describe non-duality by describing what it's not. And non-duality is simply the sense of wholeness that is left after duality is dissolved in our minds or seen as false. So literally when we do these clearings with the Dowsing folks, what we're really clearing is the belief in the mind that has wrapped itself around this frozen piece of experience and called it something and has attached an identity to it. When we douse that energy out of our own minds, we literally melt that separate form and go back into the awareness that we are that ocean. And that's the non-dual state. It's the piece that remains after conflict is healed. So again, from duality's point of view, peace and wholeness is something that needs to be gained, that we need to add to who we are, and that we need to seek outside of ourselves. And lo and behold, what we discover is when we let go of those notions of ourselves as separate and suffering, non-duality is our natural state. It's who we always were from the very beginning. We just forgot it and got lost and caught in almost like a hall of mirrors where all the images have been fractured and partialized. So this is the state that is experienced by a mind that is at one with itself, and thus at one with all other minds, and also at one with the creation of those minds, which is the world and relationships and experiences in time and space. So we're not affected by these, by time and space in the world unless we are invested in it as our identity. But as we come to experience more and more states of non-duality, we realize that the world is merely reflecting back to us our state of awareness in the moment. And this, by the way, folks, is the secret to how we change the world. We change the way we see the world, and the world changes to conform to your state of mind. So this whole principle of non-duality being our natural state is very similar to the principle of natural healing. In natural healing, we don't look for cures. We simply look to release the stressors and the conditions that are causing suffering. And as we remove those stressors or release them or reverse them through whatever means, healing happens naturally. This is a principle called homeostasis, or the nature of life to seek balance. And this is really the same principle we're talking about here. So this state of non-duality is analogous to terms we've all heard, such as enlightenment, unity consciousness, and total knowing. And with these tools and with this understanding, these states are no longer that difficult to remember. They're not that difficult to actually achieve in this lifetime. We're going from a period in history where the achievement of these states was actually quite rare. I mean, the information to people in the past and the ability to share that information was severely limited compared to today. And so experiences of enlightenment or oneness, even if they happened, they most likely weren't recorded or shared, are becoming more and more accessible to us in this time of planetary enlightenment. So non-duality can be realized. You can set your intention, and it can be realized through a practice of letting go of dualistic beliefs, memories, and conditioning. And for us, dowsing was one of the most direct, simple, and affordable means to be able to do this. It's through self-empowerment that we come back to ourselves.
Exactly. That's great. Can you give us the next slide, please? And so to add something to what David was just saying is, so eloquently I might add, is that the dowsing, as we are using it, it's a change in the perspective. We do not look at anything. Another part of this is we realize that each one of us is fully responsible for creating every experience we have ever had. You cannot become empowered. You will not become enlightened, because enlightened simply means letting go of all false perceptions that keep you stuck, limited, and in the belief that you are somehow separate from the whole. As long as we hold any threads of feeling victimized, we are not in that state, because victimization of anything, whether it's victimization, we feel we're victimized by the laws and the lawmakers, or by the medical arena, or by our partner, or by our kids or our parents, you name it, we victimize the heck out of ourselves. As long as we hold on to that, we are making a choice within to stay stuck and in the guarantee of continued conflict. So it is, when we douse, we realize that all experiences are self-created, and in resonance with others who are perhaps vibrating at the same levels with the same unconscious beliefs we are, we create experiences together for either, and we can use them any way we want. We have free will to experience every circumstance however we choose. No one has control over how you experience your life, and that is liberating to start getting that. So when we are dowsing today, you might notice that we come up with things like dowsing entities out, energies, and we'll get into more of the explanation on these things as we go along. Or we might douse out somebody else's beliefs in me. So that seems like we're dowsing out, but like we're buying into that we could be victim to anything. And I share with you that that is not true, and that is why we call our work Dowsing Beyond Duality. It's a simple change in the purpose we give to dowsing. We are using this as a tool to connect us with the unconscious thoughts, beliefs, and feelings and emotions and other patterns that we have been holding on to inside unconsciously that are keeping us locked in these old dualistic patterns, right? And when we see any experience we have, including an energy that seems to be outside of us, it is still because we are choosing to experience that. There are only two states that anyone can ever be in each moment. It's either a state of knowing your truth, which is love, a state of love, or a moment of seeking love. So when something is disturbing our peace, it's because in that moment we are calling for recognizing inside ourselves a deeper sense of love. So dowsing beyond duality is using active dowsing to clear blockages, limitations, unconscious agreements, vows, contracts that we've made in other lifetimes with family members, ancestors. It's also, we use it to clear interferences, programs, and attitudes that keep us from a non-dual state of awareness. And that clearing in and of itself, if we just left it there, it would be like moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic while it's sinking. That alone is not the great healing potential. It allows us, in clearing these patterns, it allows us to get in touch with a greater sense of spaciousness and peace. And it is in that space that we are open to receiving inspiration and awareness of our wholeness. So we use dowsing as a tool or a form of magic to create space in which miracles can occur and be observed by us, that we can be conscious participators in creating miracles in our lives. A healing practice that gets to the root cause of issues at the deepest levels that the mind will allow without fear will clear them for good. It will actually, again, it's not clearing these patterns that is the finishing touch. That finishing touch is then being aware of the peace that we feel when we have cleared these patterns of limitation, and then putting attention on that peace. Where we put our focus is what indicates whether we're in an awakened state or whether we're choosing still to be asleep in the state of separation.
Thank you. Next slide, please.
Aww, it's an enlightened kitty. How nice.
If cats can do it, so
We
can we.
can, that's right. Here we go.
Next slide, please. So what we're going to be covering in the practical end of things now, which we're going to shift into, and again, there's much more to be learned about the theories and the ideas and the foundations, and the more we ponder these issues, the firmer our foundation grows. But we're going to move right ahead now into the 4 basic movements that we use with Dowsing Beyond Duality. Now, when I first started dowsing, which I was just doing out of my own intuition, I was spontaneously getting a circular movement to the right, or a right spin, or a clockwise spin, as a natural response to a yes question or a yes response, and a left spin to a no. My teacher and mentor, Raymond Grace, suggested in his workshop that we free those movements up for the more active form of dowsing. And so he had us actually program our nervous systems and our minds to accept a vertical movement of the pendulum. In other words, the movement to and away from us as the yes response, and a horizontal movement or a left and right movement as a response to a question to no. Now, just to go back for a moment here, you can rely that your superconscious mind will always give you, it knows no deceit. The conscious mind, however, is an expert at deceit, but the unconscious or superconscious mind knows no deceit, and it will actually give you literal answers to your questions. And this is why we need to, of course, be asking questions that are very clear and focused. Vague questions will give you vague results. So yes and no, again, this would be the classic dowsing movements, and then we go on and use the left spin for in the active form to clear, remove, dissolve, unwind, release, and liberate, etc. And frankly, most of the work that we do in this clearing phase, at least, involves left spin motions. Again, as we remove the debris and the confusion, the light naturally rises in frequency. Occasionally, we use a right spin, which is to increase or add to or improve or optimize, fill in, maximum, bring in, etc. And sometimes at the end of the session, we'll use a right spin to fill all the voids, for example, that may have been cleared, the energetic voids that may have been cleared as we remove energies and patterns. So I'm going to invite you now to take your pendulums in hand if you'd like to play along. And of course, if you're just watching this for your own information, don't feel you need to do this. However, if you want to step forward and learn this yourself, take your pendulum in your hand and literally create out of your own movements. Don't wait for the pendulum to do anything. And by the way, there's no mystical power in this little rock. It's like any other rock. It's just a different shape. So we don't want to, again, we want to take the mysticism out of this whole practice and the superstition. This is simply an extension of the micro muscles that move in regards or in response to certain mental factors, as we've covered. So again, create for yourself a very strong, and by the way, even if you have, let's say, 8 or 10 inches of chain available to you with your chosen instrument, go ahead and take about half that, I'd say somewhere between 3 to 5 inches, and just shorten the chain. What this does, of course, is it increases the response rate and shortens the amount of time that any particular exercise might take. It's more efficient. So what we want to do is create a positive, strong movement, make it as strong as you feel, and we're going to repeat together out loud. So for those of you sitting at home, go ahead and join us in saying this out loud. When we say it out loud, we're actually engaging that conscious mind that is still doubtful about what the heck is going on here. And so we wanted to unite that conscious and the superconscious by saying this out loud. And we're going to program our minds and our nervous systems to accept this vertical movement as a yes response to our questions in the future. And by repeating it, what we literally do is we take that idea that this represents yes, and we take it from short-term memory, which is only 7 bits long, by the way. It's like that short-term memory on your computer. It's like the RAM on your computer. And by repeating the information, the mind automatically takes that information and puts it down into your hard drive, into long-term memory. So this is why we say it out loud and we repeat it multiple times. And we're actually going to say it 9 times to really make sure it gets in there deeply. So if you'd like to join with me now, and we'll start on the count of 3 by declaring out loud that this, meaning this movement, is my yes. 1, 2, 3. This is my yes. 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 And this is my yes. Great. Good job, you guys. Now, in a similar fashion, create in front of yourself now a strong horizontal movement with the pendulum going side to side. And in a similar fashion, on the count of 3, we are going to declare to ourselves, in agreement with all levels, that this is my no. Ready? 1, 2, 3. This is my no. 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 And this is my no. Now the other movements, the spins, we don't necessarily need to program because we're using them consciously already for a specific purpose and outcome. But to program these is very important so that your nervous system will be able to react accurately to your intentions. So what we've actually done here, and again, why don't we go ahead before we even go forward and check yourself. Hold your pendulum out in front of yourself and simply declare out loud, show me yes. Show me yes. Now some of you are going to get automatically a very strong motion, and that's great. Some may get a very weak or almost imperceptible motion, and that's okay. Remember, we're establishing new neural pathways, not only in your brain, but also in your musculature. So be patient with yourself, and the more you work with this and grow confidence, the freer that motion will grow. There are also certain clearings that we may be doing coming up soon that will help to liberate that energy flow within you as well. So I think we're ready now to go ahead.
Let's do the this is my no. We did this is my yes. Let them check their no.
Oh, sure. Check your no. Show me this is, show me no. Okay. Now, when some people watch you do this, they're actually going to see a movement of your hand because remember, we are involving the nervous system and the muscles of the body, and it's going to bring up doubt. Their conscious mind is going to say, well, that's not happening for any other reason than you're making it happen. Why, you're just doing that consciously. And it's very difficult to convince someone in that state of skepticism that it's coming from a different level of yourself. So the answer that you may want to give to those folks, and you will encounter them as you try this out with other people, is that, yes, you know, you're right, I am doing this myself, but it's not the self you think I am. You see, because they can't see in your physical form that you're actually connected to this superconscious mind that is one with them. But for many people, this is a frightening concept, that their individual self is only an idea. It's only the tip of an iceberg. So be patient with those folks and simply tell them, yes, I am doing this, but it's not the me you think I am.
I want to mention, I just checked in on something with the pendulum. Since we are not, we're saving questions till the end, by the way, and we will have a period of time when we'll open the floor to questions. In the meantime, what we have found frequently in our classes is that there may be 1 or 2 folks who are not getting a response when they check in to say, show me my yes and show me my no. And we have found in general, and so I checked in, being we're not seeing you in the audience right now, I checked in and got that, yes, we do have a couple folks that may be having a difficulty with their response. Now, what we have found, and this is only in our experience, I'm sure there's many other things that it could be, but primarily if we're having a difficult time with response with the pendulum, we found that in general it's one of 2 issues that come up for folks on an unconscious level. And the first one is a polarity reversal. In other words, the energy, the positive and negative ions in the body are actually not communicating in the right way. There is actually a disturbance in our polarity in the body, in our organs, in our cells, so our response through the nervous system will be skewed.
Direction of flow issue.
It's the direction of flow issue. We won't get accuracy, and maybe we won't even get movement with the pendulum. Now, I did check in while David was speaking, and I got that that is not an issue for our group. But I did get that there's a few folks out there that might have a problem with this second possibility, and that possibility is persecution. So we've had lots of lifetimes where we've played out different roles, and if you don't believe in past lives, that's okay. No need for that. We can even look in this lifetime and perhaps recall a time or two when we felt persecuted for our ideas, for what we were trying to create. And so this pattern can block the flow of energy and also create a great resistance in us. I mean, for instance, there have been millions of people on this planet who have been put to death through burnings and beheadings and hangings, et cetera, for using healing techniques that were then called acts of witchcraft. So with these memories looming in our unconscious mind, they would perhaps inhibit our desire to come out of the closet, if you will, with our gifts again, because look what happened the last time, or maybe it was the last 52 times. Anyway, in this case, we got a yes on that, so let's check in, and I'm going to check in to see if we have permission to, for the group, release all memories of persecution. I'm getting a yes on that. So with a release, we do a left spin or counterclockwise, like taking the hands on a clock and going backwards because you want to put time back, right? So counterclockwise, we start the spin, and then we just let it go, and we relax our wrists and let it continue spinning until it feels like it's done. So we now release for ourselves and the group any and all memories of persecution and all trauma that goes along with that. We release all fear-based emotions, feelings, thoughts, beliefs, vows, contracts, and agreements, and all other patterns that have been holding these memories and fears around persecution in our bodies and our fields. As with everything else today, we transmute this energy that we are releasing back to pure light energy in the highest vibration to serve all our needs.
Now, as our first example of active dowsing, what we actually have done here is we had a conscious intent, and so we consciously started the spin. We didn't wait for the spin to start itself. We just went in there and started spinning. But then we put in the mental clutch, I like to call it, or disengage, step back, you might say, from the process. And if the conscious mind is no longer involved or attached to this process, by default, the superconscious mind is now in charge. So we become the observer of the process and allow the spin to tell us when the actual dynamics of this change have been accomplished. What will happen is the spin will take on a life of its own, and it will continue to spin. And our sense is that as long as it's spinning, whatever needs to be adjusted or changed in the spirit world, in the higher dimensions, or whatever is going on here, is happening. So we don't want to stop the spin until it actually comes to a natural standstill, which it will do eventually. You could say that the amount of time that the spin in this kind of an exercise takes, the deeper the issue or the wider the issue is, there's more involved perhaps. Some issues seem to resolve very quickly. Some like this are going on a little bit, and oh, here we go.
There we go, calming down. You might say that it's the deeper the BS we've been standing in, because as all we're doing is unwinding storylines, beliefs we've been holding on to, right?
Right, it's like a snorkel.
It's like a snorkel, right. Now, before we get on with the first of our list of clearings here, and again, please participate with us. We'll tell you when it's a left and a right spin. But just check for yourself now, again, and see if you don't have better response now that we cleared the persecution issue. So simply hold your pendulum, relax your mind. One thing we didn't do is invite all of you to go into a more relaxed place. And let's just take one moment, take a few deep breaths. And one way we can do that to get ourselves into what we spoke of earlier, the alpha state, is to imagine in front of your eyes the figure 8 going back and forth in front of you. Or in other words, drawing your attention to the peripheral vision, right?
Ooh, I ate the whole thing.
I ate the whole thing. Just imagine that for a moment. Relax your breathing and see how the mind just naturally starts settling down. That's also creating a nice bridge between the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So take a nice deep breath and simply relax yourself. Anytime you feel yourself getting amped up and maybe the dowsing is a little challenging for you today, go back into the breath and then run that quickly in front of your eyes. So now, with a more relaxed mind, or the alpha state, which indigenous people call the land of the living, by the way, where they call the beta state, the land of the spirit, where they call the beta state, or our busy mind, the land of the dead, the living dead. So let's be the living alive now. Anyway, simply ask your pendulum, not ask, just say, show me my yes. And now that you're relaxed and we've cleared those patterns, you may have a different response coming up. Stop the pendulum then and say, show me my no. Okay. And by the way, we'll take some questions at the end, and then we're certainly going to give you information to email us if you have some things personally that, maybe you weren't getting the response you wanted or something. You can email us also after this class, and we're happy to get back to you.
Sure. And we can put a nice picture up in the background now, because I think we're finished with the informational side of this. And again, this is an online healing retreat, so we're here to facilitate a healing experience for everyone. And again, whether you decide to take the teaching component of this and actually apply it for yourself, we certainly encourage that, but it's not necessary for you to receive the benefits of these clearings now. So again, we invite you to either play along or simply sit back and go into a receptive state as we, with this collective understanding, go through some of the things that we actually have prepared ahead of time for clearing. So again, we've come up with a number of things, and whether we get through them all or not in the designated time, we'll see. We will be, again, breaking about 10 minutes before the end for just some more information. But let's see what we get through. So the first thing on our list is actually to raise for ourselves not only our accuracy dowsing, this is going to be a right spin, not only our accuracy in dowsing, but also our confidence, our self-confidence, our confidence in ourselves as our own healers. And let's raise that now to 100%. In our classes, we teach you how to actually measure these things on a scale of 10 so that you can actually see, the numerical or the digital effects of your dowsing. But right now, we want to bring up for everyone listening, whether you're listening to this live or listening to this recording, we are now going to raise not only your accuracy for dowsing, but also your confidence in yourself as your own healer, your confidence in yourself as an empowered being, as a member of this unified field of humanity that we're all coming into and evolving into. Some in the Peruvian traditions, they say that for the last many, many thousands of years, we've been operating as Homo sapiens, and this just means beings with self-awareness. We are now evolving into what they call Homo luminous, or light beings. And the light that we are individually and collectively is without limit. So this is where we're heading, folks, and we invite you to embrace that. So we're putting that intention into this spin that each and every one of us will rise to 100% confidence, not only in our dowsing work, but on our knowledge of ourselves as divine healers and beings of tremendous potential and co-creative power. And we'll also ask, and this is a wonderful little thing to add on, a little clause, is that once this is achieved for all of us, that it maintain as the new baseline without reversal, so that we don't have to continually go back and do this on a regular basis.
If we just stopped here, this would be a good day. If this was the only dowsing, the only clearing we did.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes, we can go home early.
School's out.
So again, we started the spin consciously and let go of any control or any desire for outcome, and simply let the work come through us. And we find it really interesting when we do that, 90% of the time, our pendulums stop at the same time.
Yeah.
And again, that just gives us further encouragement that there's something going on here beyond the conscious mind.
Right. And no worries if that's not happening on your end, by the way. If it's not stopping exactly when ours does, doesn't mean you're not doing it right. Probably because we spend so much time hanging out together, it's getting more in sync now, too, with our pendulums. Anyway.
We're actually Siamese twins.
We're actually Siamese twins, exactly.
Hang on like this all day. Got no choice.
Anyway, he's a comedian in the nighttime.
No, Canadian.
Night job.
Canadian.
Oh, Canadian, not comedian. You know, the C word, it just comes in hand, I guess. Anyway, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to upgrade spirit guides. Okay, so we all have spirit guides, or it's like a committee we have, and it's wonderful, of all these beings that are always loving us and supporting us and helping us as we move through our lessons in life. And some of them may be old, family members that have passed over to the other side. Some may be those who have reached levels of enlightenment, ascension on this lifetime and passed on, like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna,
Elvis.
Or Elvis. Exactly, Elvis may be your spirit guide. If you start singing those songs, and you notice your hips gyrating, you're going to know maybe Elvis is on the team. Anyway, in the meantime, what happens, it seems, is, beautiful, nice choice of pics over there, is that this could look like our spirit guides. If you'll see that picture on the left, that's wonderful, looking down and guiding us and helping us along. Anyway, as it seems that some spirit guides stay with us for a lifetime. And other spirit guides, maybe they hang out as we get through certain lessons in life, and they've done all that we've needed for them to do and support, and it's time for them to move on, and new spirit guides to come on that are resonating with where we're at now in life and what we're working on. So what we do with an upgrade is we just, with great gratitude, we invite the spirit guides that are ready to move on to go ahead, and we thank them for their service, and we invite in new spirit guides. And for some folks, they find that just doing this all of a sudden opens things up in their life. All of a sudden they feel more inspired, the job starts going in the right direction, new things come their way. It's like it's like getting a whole new committee, right? And everybody is, there's fresh new blood in the office, if you will, on your team. So it's really exciting. So anyway, I did get that this would be beneficial for us to do. So we're going to do this, and we'll do this together. We're going to do it with a left spin, or a counterclockwise spin. And as we are releasing with gratitude all those spirit guides that are ready to move on, who have been in great service to us, thank you, thank you. We send you on to the most appropriate dimensions to continue in your path as we continue in ours. As we do this, we are going to invite in, at the same time, we're going to piggyback rather than starting another spin. We're going to invite in new spirit guides. So as we're releasing these spirit guides, I invite in all those spirit guides that best serve our highest good now, and to continue working with us in divine alignment with us and with one another for the ultimate purpose of healing all aspects of this one collective mind back to wholeness.
Now, this isn't necessarily clearing out all your spirit guides just because we want new ones. This actually is clearing out aspects of our guides that are not 100% pure light, and helping our guides actually ascend within their own path as well.
Sure, it's for everybody's highest good. And again, only those who are ready to move on. We can't force anybody to do anything, so we're simply agreeing. Our minds, whatever comes up in a dowsing session, by the way, is simply what the unconscious mind wants to bring to surface in the moment. And so this is representing that. So our collective mind together in this group today said, yeah, there's some spirit guides ready to move on. Let's do it, honor them, and bring new ones in.
And these new ones, by intention, are what we would call 100% of the light. In other words, these are guides that are willing to be 100% available to us now to assist us maximally in opening doors, in operating without the limitations of the body. That's really what spirit guides do. They're a lot like us. We're not talking about ascended masters or cosmic beings. We're talking about those who are
although they could be
very close to us vibrationally.
But we are all ascended masters, actually. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah. So the next thing we want to do is release what we call 4D entities. And now there's two different ways of looking at the whole entity issue. One is from the dualistic perception, and the other is from the non-dual. Dualistically speaking, entities would be beings such as disincarnate, such as extraterrestrials or beings operating out of other dimensions that have some ability to affect us, in most cases negatively. When we say entities, we're implying a negative entity or an attachment. And the problem with that limited perception is that it puts you in the position of the victim. And so we want to get away from that. Again, this is about empowerment. So if we shift to a non-dual perception, and under non-duality, our understanding is that we never actually experience anything other than ourselves, extensions of ourselves, our own thoughts. So we like to look at these entities as simply thoughts that we have at one time or another denied and therefore projected outside of our awareness. Now, this is a trick of the mind that we do in the state of separation. We think that by denying something mentally or projecting it outside of ourselves, that we actually get rid of it. Of course, we're fooling ourselves because an idea never leaves its source. So we take these ideas, these thoughts, these impressions, these feelings, project them out, and eventually they circle back and land with an identity, perhaps, of what we might call an entity, but really they're representative of this denied thought. And what that thought is asking is, are you ready to recognize me now and heal me? Are you ready to accept this thought and forgive it and heal it and bring it back into oneness or wholeness? So we prefer that view of the entities because, again, it puts you at the center and gives you the power to choose what to do with that. So when we clear the entities, we actually do so, and again, we're going to ask permission of all those involved, our spirit guides and all the beings of light that work with us to do this. I'm getting a yes. And with the left spin now, we respectfully ask that any non-beneficial entities caught in our energy field, our physical bodies, our homes and properties, and let's also add our workplaces and even our vehicles where we spend a lot of time, as well as those affecting us from other timelines and dimensions. Again, the concept of past lives from a non-dual perspective actually brings those lives a little more closer to home, and we can view them as parallel lives or parallel timelines that we are simultaneously experiencing other experiences. So we bring we expand the dowsing now to include also those other parts of ourselves that are having other experiences and other timelines. And actually, when we started adding that aspect to the entity clearing, we found that the numbers of entities vastly increased. So it was an encouragement that, yes, we can actually do this in quantum time, that is, releasing entities affecting us in all different time frames and dimensions simultaneously. Now, as we do this release, some of you may actually experience a lightness in your heart, in your energy, in your emotions, and even the release of pain. Physical pain in joints, hips, shoulders, back pain, etc. Very often these patterns of suffering are held in place by these entities that have become lodged in the body. And again, these are just frozen thought forms, you might say. So we find that on the release of these, that very often chronic physical issues also spontaneously are released. So let's piggyback onto this removal, the intention to automatically fill all the voids or empty spaces created as this clearing moves forward with what we call fifth dimensional, another name for non-dual, energies of healing, wholeness, forgiveness, freedom, and joy. In the world of energy, you have to do something with that energy. So we're actually transmuting those thought forms back to those higher level thought forms and inviting them back in to take the place of the lower thought forms.
And so bringing that new energy in, we reverse all ill effects of the negative energy we were holding on to in our experience.
Okay. Interestingly, we both came to a stop at the same time.
Yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty good. It's working. And so just to mention also, if you see the wrist moving a little bit, when I first started dowsing, and we've both been dowsing for over a decade or so, right? When I first started dowsing, I was one of these purists. I used to because I was really linear at the time, really left-brained at the time, and so I would really have my elbow rooted on a table, and I would make sure that I was not moving my wrist, and it would start every time on even a spin. I wouldn't start spins; they would start on their own, right? And so I had this idea that if it did anything other than that, my mind was getting in the way, and blah blah blah. Anyway, I was cheating. So we met, and here he is. His whole arm is moving with it, and I'm looking at him initially. The dowsing, the pendulum was one of our first communication devices, and I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, he's cheating. Look at that. He's moving his wrist. I will tell you.
Not the me she thought she was.
Right. Exactly. It's been a learning process since then. It's never the same. Anyway, what I have discovered is we can relax around that, and your wrist will move. If you relax around it, you're going to get the feeling of the pendulum. When there's a spin, you can start the spin. Our conscious mind knows what we want or what our intention is, right? And then as you're letting it hang there, just let your wrist move with the pendulum. For those of you on this call that might be brand new to this, you will start very quickly feeling being sensitive to the pendulum, and when it's slowing down, you'll know. So you don't have to rigidly be holding it like this, right? You'll end up with Dowser's elbow and Dowser's wrist. We don't want that.
Dowser's hump.
Yeah, Dowser's hump. That too, all hunched over here like this. Anyway, moving right along here. So we're going to clear chakras now. We're going to do this in a nice fluid sweep. Our chakras are our energy centers, and we've got, they've noted at least 72 in our body, and they're all around in our field too. We're clearing our primary chakras that run up the midline of the body and conveniently are above our endocrine glands and very much responsible for transmitting, or not transducing energy, bringing energy that is coming in, bringing it to a level that can process well in the body, right? So these are our energy centers. For those of you that don't know the chakras, plenty of info out on them. But we're going to start now with the lower chakras and the earth chakras, actually, those energy centers that really connect us to the earth. And we're going to move right up in a fluid spin all the way up through our midline and out through the upper chakras, just opening the flow of energy in our body and in our field. And so we're going to do this with a left spin, which you can start. So with this spin, we now join as each one of us puts attention below our feet to these energy centers and lines of energy that actually connect us with Mother Earth.
You move more than me now.
Now I'm moving. I know. See, now we've gone opposites. My wrist is much looser than his now. Watch it might come flying off. So we now open all the earth chakras, releasing all fear-based patterns. We move up from the earth chakras into the root chakra. As we go up through all the chakras, we are removing from each and every one of them all fear-based beliefs, feelings, emotions, and unlimiting, I should say, ancestral patterns, and psychic cords. These are energy lines that tie us to old relationships or relationships in general that are unhealed, that have fear in them, right? As we release those cords, we simply transform all this fear-based energy back to the vibration of love and sending it back to its sources. So we move up now from the earth chakras up to our tailbone and that whole area around there. and we clear all these fear-based patterns from the root chakra, moving on up to the sacral chakra or second chakra, which is by our navel, moving up to the solar plexus, which is a few inches above the navel, all the way up our midline to the center of our chest, to the heart chakra. We move up and clear the solar plexus, the heart chakra and upper heart chakra. We clear our throat chakra, our brow chakra, our crown chakra at the top of our head, releasing all these patterns as stated and all other fear-based patterns that are not stated that have been creating blockages in these energy fields and all harmonics of these energy fields. That means all associated physical, mental, emotional, and so forth patterns that are associated with these energy points. We also clear now all upper chakras, including our planetary, galactic, universal, and stellar chakras that expand and connect us to the whole with information. Clearing these centers, we now bring the flow of light energy in fluidly through these centers and through all our meridians in our body and our field, reversing all ill effects and allowing for a higher level of energy information flowing through us. We simply let the spin stop and see how this feels for you. Are you feeling even lighter now? Do you feel a little more energy moving through your body or around you, a little more spaciousness?
Yes, I do.
Good.
So the next thing we want to clear now, folks, is I'm going to move on down the list here for some prehistoric curses. Now, a prehistoric curse, well, first of all, a curse is simply a very strong mental intention that is held in the cellular memory and can actually be passed on genetically into other generations. And again, these curses very often are the result of an extreme trauma or conflict. There are also what are called prehistoric curses. And a prehistoric curse has to do more with the memory of the actual elements that make up your body. Although your physical body may have been born, 20, 30, 40 years ago, the elements in your body, the atoms in your body, have been around for, well, at least 4.5 billion years from the actual creation of this Earth out of the former sun that has that existed before our sun. Just to give you a quick synopsis here, our sun is a secondary star. There was a star here before our sun that exploded and expelled out into space all of the elements and substances that became the planet. And then what was left of that congealed back into the sun that we have it as we see it now. So your body is literally made of stardust, just like in that song from the 1960s. But this stardust has memory. It has the memory of these conflicts and cataclysms, of all of the evolutionary hiccups throughout the evolution of life on this planet. So anytime there was a planetary cataclysm, anytime there was extreme volcanism or floods or these other types of catastrophes, the elements in your body endured that in one form or another. And so we call these stressors prehistoric curses. So with the left spin now, we're going to release from our physical bodies on the molecular, atomic, and subatomic levels all memories of prehistoric curses or traumas in prehistory held in the memory of the literal atoms in our body, of the starlight that is congealed into atomic and subatomic forms in our bodies. And as these stressors are released on that level of memory, we fill the voids created by this memory erasure with the memory of ourselves as who we are as co-creators of this universe, as light beings living in harmony and oneness with our Creator, allowing the light of that memory now to take the place of these memories of prehistoric trauma. Now, this is a very subtle change, and I'm not quite sure how you might experience this, other than perhaps a sense of newness, a sense of more potential than past, more future than past, as the literal atoms in your body become now clear and open to step into this next step of evolution. Interestingly, the evolution of the human form is also being driven by changes in starlight, in this case primarily changes in the nature of the light of the sun. So this process of your body as being an extension of the light of the sun is actually ongoing. And perhaps by releasing these stressors, we'll move more quickly and gracefully into this new step of evolution and getting that complete.
Okay, great. So now that we have all this spaciousness and we have light energy moving more fluidly through us, let's now ground ourselves. So we're going to do a right spin, and I am getting actually as a whole in creating a measuring system, which again we're not getting into in today's class, but we're about 50%, if you will, in our bodies. Now that's not, we're not fully in. It's like we're like these helium balloons floating above the body. Well, if we're not fully in our bodies, if we're not fully grounded in these bodies, and there's many different reasons why that might be, but if we're not, we can't really be fully effective here. So let's actually join together now and with a right spin, because what we're doing is we're bringing in our awareness of a grounding cord or energy cord that actually extends, moves all the way through us and our chakras, all the way out our tailbone and moves down to the center of the earth, connecting us with the center of this wonderful earth that we are part of, and extending us and our awareness back into the body and into that connection, allowing us to feel more empowered that way, allowing us actually to feel more energetic that way. A sign of being ungrounded might be if you're feeling confused, chaotic, your memory's been a little iffy lately, you just can't seem to get everything done. Well, part of that is also what we're all going through. That's why it's really actually a great idea to each day consciously reconnect yourself with this grounding cord. Right? We are going through a lot of changes together, and this grounding will help you feel more centered, and also, again, that really helps us be more effective in everything that we're doing.
Being multidimensional for many people means being spiritual and, connecting with the guides and the masters, but it also means being grounded in the lower or the physical dimensions as well. Okay. So being multidimensional doesn't mean necessarily leaving the body behind, but integrating all of the dimensions into your awareness and having the freedom and the knowledge to know what dimension you're operating in, and to do so effectively in all dimensions.
And actually, it is our anchoring, our grounding with that first dimension, which is the core of the earth, that creates the ability to experience all other vibrational levels. Mm-hmm. So that grounding really anchors that, and not anchored in fixing or making stuck, but allowing us to kind of move like a boat just floating in a nice safe harbor, but moving with the tides as they come in and out. So keep yourselves grounded, and you'll probably feel more confident that way too. And we hear a lot about being in present moment awareness, now consciousness. Eckhart Tolle is wonderful at bringing that to our attention. We need to be in our bodies to be in present moment awareness. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the next thing.
Sure. What we'd like to work with now is something called past life vows. And these are very strong intentions, so strong that they actually can carry over from incarnation to incarnation, that typically have to do with what we thought was best for us at the time. Many of these vows were things like vows of poverty, vows of silence, vows of poverty, or I should say vows of chastity, vows of obedience. And at the time, they seemed to be the best choice. A lot of them, I think, had to do with our experiences perhaps in religious orders. As in the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages, if anybody wanted an education or to have any experience of culture, they pretty well had to join one of these communities, and many of these communities involved these vows. Now, as we make these vows on a very deep and sincere level, again, we imprinted our own DNA with that information, and we bring them forward into the modern era where they may no longer serve us. For example, a vow of poverty may be what's keeping us from being able to earn a decent living. A vow of silence may be what's keeping us from being able to express ourselves, etc. So what we want to do now is, with the left spin, go back for each and every one of us to any point in time where we may have actually made one of these non-beneficial vows, and release ourselves now in present time of any blockages, limitations, thoughts, beliefs, self-concepts that we may be carrying over, resonating with these past life vows. And we actually release ourselves in those times as well, where we made these decisions, from any blockages, fears, forms of suffering that may have also been involved along with these vows. And we release all relationships that may have been infected, or I should say affected, by these concepts,
and infected,
I suppose, and release these relationships back to harmony and freedom for forgiveness as we step forward into the future now without any blockages associated with these past life vows. Again, we started the spin with our conscious intention, released attachment to the outcome, and we're just allowing the spin now to spin itself out as these energies are released. And again, if you're listening to this and receiving these blessings, you can also use your breath, to symbolize the receiving, bringing in of that energy, and then the out-breath to symbolize letting go of the blockages and any of these issues that we're clearing as we go along.
Nice. Okay. Excuse me, moving right along. May I have a taste of that water?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Peppermint.
Invigorating. Anyway, we're going to actually go to a point of time now. So the past is nothing more, the relevance, let me put it this way, the past is nothing more than the relevance we give it, or the meaning we give it, or we could also say what, and again, the tip of the iceberg, mainly on an unconscious level, what pattern we are holding on to that we haven't let go of. That's the only meaning the past has for us. As such, we are able to really effectively time travel, as we have been doing, to release these prehistoric curses and all these other patterns that we've been holding on to, who knows how many incarnations. So we're going to go back now to this, in this incarnation, the point of birth, because it's pretty guaranteed that there was some kind of experience of trauma in that. It's a traumatic experience, Here we are, nice and cozy in the womb, nice temperature, water's fine, really loving this, constant food coming into us, and all of a sudden we wake up one day and we're getting shoved right out of there, out into in most cases, these days they do it a little differently, but it used to be very bright, an operating room where delivery is happening in many cases. So it's a traumatic experience. So we're going to, with a left spin, join as we go back, each one of us, to that point in time, to our birthing. We now release any and all trauma and memories of trauma from our birth for ourselves and our mother, as well as all others concerned, our father and any others concerned, but I can guarantee you the mother was having a bit more of a tricky time with it than anybody else. Having a couple of kids myself, I can say that. As I recall, yes, it's a lovely, wonderful experience, so let's actually release any and all memories that are not part of that memory of what a beautiful, wondrous experience it is when a baby comes into the world, when a being comes into your life. So we release this trauma and reverse all ill effects of any and all birth trauma held by us or our mother and all others concerned throughout our lifetime. Simply clearing our cells, our DNA, our field, every aspect of our being of those memories, allowing us to fully be here in this lifetime with great joy, without any hesitation, and always ready to burst into new ideas and creations.
Physical, mental, emotional.
Yes, releasing all physical, mental, emotional, releasing that trauma on all levels of our being. Okay. So.
It may seem illogical to the conscious mind that we could do something like this. But as Erina was saying, the past only exists in our present memory of it. You know, where can you go to actually revisit the past other than in your own mind as you think about it now? So we call this what we call vertical time, where all events are understood to have happened simultaneously. But the mind, in its belief and need for separation, separates all these experiences out into imaginary timelines. But if you think about it, folks, the only time that you actually only ever be and ever are here in your human experience is the present moment. So this is one of the reasons why we can do this. It's not so much of a stretch of the imagination to go back in time and change conditions when we recognize that that time is always a present moment memory.
Held either, and again, most of it is, like that iceberg, most of it is in our unconscious mind. And it literally is held. Memories are held as when we experience something, if we just allow that experience to come and go and we're not locked up with trauma or holding on to it for some reason, it just moves through us, if you will. But those times in life especially that have been traumatic, we hold that trauma in chemistry as well as energy in the body. Even lifetime to lifetime, it becomes part of our energy signature. And it will continue bringing to us resonant frequencies to bring up experiences that will surface that same feeling of trauma and those same emotions that come up until we let go of it. So when we say that we're going to a past life or back to the point of birth to let go of these traumas, what we're also really doing is letting go of the polarized energy in our field and our body that is going to otherwise continue bringing similar traumatic experiences to the table. So this really frees you up. It's really quite liberating.
Change your mind, change your life.
Absolutely.
And speaking of releasing memory, the next thing we want to do is to release the memory of trauma from our muscular system. Muscles, like any other tissue, are made up of chemistry, of course, but also made up of water, also made up with electrolytes. So you could say that even living tissue is a memory storage system, much like a computer chip. And when we hold memory of trauma or illness or conflict in the muscles, very often it creates a condition of inflammation or weakness in that muscle. The muscle becomes susceptible to injury and this type of thing. So let's douse now to release our muscular system in all of its manifestations of any and all trauma memories, memories of conflict, memories of suffering, releasing any repressed emotions, releasing any negative thought forms from our muscular system, releasing our muscular system now to reestablish its normal, natural, healthy state as a communication tool for the mind to operate in the physical world. And as these muscular memories are released, we release any of the pain, discomfort, inflammatory states, and other conditions associated with these non-beneficial memories. So again, allow your attention to focus now on your physical body. As you breathe in the release, and as you breathe out the release of these old energies, the release of these old patterns that no longer serve you. And actually see your muscles now beginning to enliven, beginning to brighten, beginning to shine with the freedom that this release is allowing.
In more of a relaxed, natural state, this returns your entire musculature back to an optimal state of health and function.
Okay, that's good.
Nice. Well, let's continue along the same theme here, and now we're going to release all of these constricted patterns in our cranium and along our spine, including the nervous system. So we now release from our cranium and our spine down through every vertebrae from C1, the atlas, all the way down to the coccyx or our tailbone, and all vertebrae in between, releasing also all of this energy from the spinal cord, from our nervous system that runs through the spinal cord, and from all fascia around that, all connective tissue around that. So this ought to feel really good now that we're doing the spine and we've already done the musculature. We release all fear-based, limiting beliefs, thoughts, emotions, feelings, and other patterns that have been lodged in biochemically and bioenergetically, creating constriction in this area and interfering with the flow of natural energy. Reversing all ill effects on all levels of our being, physical, mental, emotional, and on all levels of beingness as we do this. Allowing energy to move lightning fast through this spinal cord now, and allowing greater flexibility and optimal health and function in our spine and our nervous system.
So as we continue with the theme here of clearing
turning into gel, how about you?
clearing these memories in the physical body, let's extend this also now to our circulatory system. It's well understood that the circulation is an indicator of levels of stress as the fight or flight response. So when there's even slight levels of unconscious stress, again in the form of these memory patterns, the circulatory system can be kept in a state of chronic fight or flight. This is one of the major contributors to high blood pressure and other sort of conditions associated, such as kidney damage and heart disease. So let's release our circulatory system now on all levels of any trapped emotional energy, any constricted energy related to any stress pattern, releasing any stress patterns affecting our circulatory system, and allowing our circulatory system to naturally resume its normal, natural, relaxed state, thereby supplying optimal levels of blood to all cells in the body, supplying optimal levels of nutrition and oxygen to all cells in the body. And we ask, as the stress is released, to replace these stress patterns with the memory of our oneness, with the memory of our connectedness to all that is, to each other, to our source, and to all creation, and allowing our circulatory system now to relax into that memory.
So we devote these clearings to changing the purpose of this physical body from being one of whose purpose was to hold on to that established separate identity, keeping me separate from others, to instead allowing this body to just be a powerful communication tool while I'm here on earth, allowing me to allow the extension of creation and love to move through this body and communicate that to all others in my life. We're freeing our body from self-punishment to being an open, beautiful tool simply for creative energy to move through it. So going to the DNA now, we now release all limitations in our DNA. So we know now, even on the scientific level, that our DNA is not just fixed. It's, we're not really victims of our DNA either, by the way. And our DNA is changing all the time. A great book to read on that, if you're interested in that, is Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. That's just a wonderful source on that. So in the meantime, we have certain patterns that have been passed down. We end up changing our DNA when through our emotions. If we have a great trauma and we hold that trauma in, that actually creates changes that can start creating DNA mutations. With that in mind, we can do reversals of negative DNA mutations by simply creating more of an energy flow and the vibration of love moving through our cells again. So releasing these patterns and instead bringing our DNA up to optimal levels of form and function, bringing more light in. Ideally, I should say not ideally, but primarily our DNA is a light receiver and transmitter. It brings light information in, and it transmits that light information into valuable information throughout our body and our beingness. So we clear this up and bring this to new levels of higher vibration.
So I think we have time for one more clearing, folks, before we field just a few questions.
Two more.
And then do a little bit of wrapping up together. But what we'd like to clear now is allergies, true allergies, that in our experience have been associated with emotional trauma. Now, some of the symptoms that we may attribute to allergies may actually be for other reasons, what we would call sensitivities. So this is not necessarily addressing sensitivities on a physical level, but rather we're going to address the emotions at the root of any true allergy. It turns out that the true allergies are often the more extreme ones that actually can produce life-threatening responses. So we're going to now douse with a left spin for all of us here attending and listening to this recording to release us on all levels of our being in whatever time frame or dimension these original emotional traumas may be held, of any and all emotional memories and traumas contributing to allergic responses in the body at this time. As these traumas are released, we ask to fill the voids created by this release, again with the memory of our divine perfection and our higher self, and releasing all players in that drama, that is all relationships that may also be ongoing, of any blockages or resistances associated with these original traumas.
Reversing all ill effects in the body and bringing the body and the immune system back into an ideal state and into an ideal state of responsiveness rather than hyperreaction.
Okay, quick one.
Okay, we're going to now seal these clearings that we've done by bringing in a number, a rate that correlates that we achieved this rate before getting on this program today with you. And this number 999 is a gateway to continue assisting. We are broadcasting with a right spin the number 999 into all of us, into every aspect of our beingness, to continue assisting us until no longer needful, necessary, or beneficial with the benefits of this clearing and everything else that we are releasing right now as we walk through a gateway into a greater, more awakened state and freedom and joy and happiness, right? So 999, 9 is the perfect number of completion as well as a gateway to new beginnings. So allow this number to continue working for you until you no longer need it. It will help you integrate the clearings that we've done today and continue working with you. So we will take some questions now.
Yes, and Lauren, we do have access to the questions coming up on the sideboard here. So I see that there's a number of comments there, and thank you all for leading those comments. And if you do have any questions, beyond this session today, please don't hesitate to contact us at our email address, which is info@bluesunenergetics.net. And we're more than happy to, clear up any questions or clarify anything in this class today. We will take a couple of questions, though, if anybody would like to type them in, and we'd be more than happy to clarify things. Other than that, we'll go ahead and finish off with some information at the end of our PowerPoint presentation. Seeing some thanks, and of course we always appreciate that.
Yes, and thank you everybody for the comments. That's great. Nice to hear the experiences you've been having as we've been moving through this together.
This is our
book.
That's
great.
This is our book, Dowsing Beyond Duality, chock full of goodies.
Yeah.
And everything that we've talked about today, again, is covered in much more detail with charts, etc. in the book. Now, here's a comment here. Worked wonderfully. My pendulum stopped moments within 2 seconds of yours. That's
nice.
Cool. Yeah. Again, these things are fascinating.
Yeah.
But if we really believe what we're talking about, they're not that surprising. Another comment here. Amazing book to have at home. You betcha, Nina. And actually, in our classes, we are in the phases right now of polishing up our Dowsing certification program, which is actually based on that book. So again, if you're looking at this as an actual practice, and it can be a standalone practice, you may want to just dive into that book now and start absorbing more of that information.
Yeah, we have found this practice to be one, actually, I guess we could say one of the most powerful practices that we use. Again, we use a lot of other tools and techniques, but this one has been so life-changing for us and for our family members and clients and friends that it really is a passion of ours. We really are loving it, actually, and loving the classes that we hold with this, and we are so grateful to be doing this one with you all today. It's been a hoot.
Okay, so there's a good comment here from Jean about her pendulum wanting to move by itself. I'm glad you brought that up, Jean. Basically, what we tell students is don't let that happen. Again, what happens when the pendulum starts moving ourselves and we allow it, we're actually disengaging on a conscious level, and we're coming out of alignment with the conscious and the superconscious. So you always want to be in conscious control of what is happening. Our sense is that why that happens is your superconscious mind is getting overexcited. It's going, oh, at last she's doing something where I can now clear this energy. I've been storing it up for lifetimes here.
Yahoo!
And it wants to jump ahead of you and accomplish something on its own. But we don't want to do that because there's not much value in it, and if you're not knowing what's being cleared, and also it disempowers the conscious mind. So don't let that happen. Be in control. Allow the yeses and nos to happen spontaneously. But other movements, you want to be, it's kind of like you want to be the rider on the horse. And the horse wants to go this way, but you have another destination.
You have to take the reins in.
You have to take the reins.
And also it will really help you with your dowsing confidence that your answers are accurate if you do that. If you keep yourself in the driver's seat there.
All right. No problem switching here from Rimke. Good. Thank you. Thank you for the blessings. All back at you.
Yes,
very drowsy during the clearing. Oh, well, for some people, we're very boring.
Yeah, we might be putting you to sleep.
But actually,
clearings can do that.
Clearings can do that. Yeah. For some people, I actually get physical movement sometimes when energy clears. But also, yawning is a typical response, and better than some others, which we won't mention.
Well, right. Except for we do have one friend, and I just love it when she's doing clearing work because she burps through the whole thing. It's great.
Okay.
Entertaining.
Retired radiologist amazed by the relief it gives goslings.
Okay.
Not boring.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Interesting. That's great. Well, I'm wondering if there's not any other questions, maybe we will bring up the slides now that can lead you to, discovering more and getting further information about what we're doing.
And some of the tools we use.
And some of the tools we use, because we use other tools as great adjuncts to this also. So, and we also do private sessions, by the way, personal sessions. A lot of our sessions are remote sessions. It works beautifully.
Could we bring up the PowerPoint once again with those final slides on it? Lauren, please.
And I do want...
Unless you fell asleep.
Yeah, she might. Well, she might be clear.
Oh, here we are. Here we are.
Beautiful. Okay, so more information here. Dowsing Beyond Duality. David showed you our book here. Here it is. Okay, it's available on Amazon.com and most major bookstores. Also, David wrote a book that was released last year. It's an awesome book, Navigating the Collapse of Time, A Peaceful Path Through the End of Illusion, for a reassuring look at 2012. I have to tell you, this is a comforting book. It brings clarity to so many of the different ideas that are out there about what's happening right now, and it puts them together in a very digestible form. In fact, he was interviewed by Shirley MacLaine with this book, and she announced the book at the time as being the best book she had read. And I'm proud to say, actually, it really was. A lot of his heart went into this book. Anyway, you can also get on our website, bluesunenergetics.net, for dowsing classes and personal dowsing sessions.
Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. We have classes, and this one class coming up soon, actually, in the second week of September, is a 5-week web-based class called Soulful Communication. It's about making room for miracles in relationships.
One of our most powerful classes. If you think dowsing is powerful, so is this class. It's just amazing. Feedback we get all the time is it's life transformative.
And for those of you looking to further your credentials, this class also satisfies the coaching requirement towards a license as a spiritual health coach. But really, we feel that the greater value is the insight that you can gain into the nature of relationships, really as healing opportunities. So discover the true healing potential within all relationships through learning practical skills and techniques. So please have a look at that course if that area appeals to you. Next slide, please.
All of our classes are based on non-dualistic principles and how to live these out in our life. In other words, how to awaken fully in relationship using different tools like our dowsing. So that's the foundation that is there consistently in all of them. So our Dowsing Beyond Duality class, the same thing. We keep reinforcing self-empowerment through understanding duality versus non-duality in a bigger way and letting go of our old storylines, right? So it's a 2.5-day intensive learning experience, empowerment through liberating your inner healer. We love these classes. They are just so much fun. Practical teachings, hands-on experience. We really go deep and broad with the work together in these classes. And really by the end of this weekend, those coming to our class walk away really feeling pretty darn confident in their dowsing ability, and they right away are, taking it to their families, friends, and loved ones, and so forth. Anyway, again, it's a powerful healing modality on its own or as an enhancement to any modality. It really, even if you worked with this and didn't use it much afterwards, it actually awakens in a much deeper level that awareness of the superconscious mind. It really enhances your relationship with that, so all of your healing modalities go up to a next level. And our next class, by the way, is going to be here in Boulder, lovely Boulder, and that is the weekend of September 21st through 23rd. So if you're interested in that and you want to assure a seat for yourself, you can get on our website and sign up for that, or email us and ask us questions about it. So never feel that you don't have the answers again when you take this dowsing and you really move with it in your life.
It's like discovering you have this whole other level of consciousness available to you.
Oh, gosh, it is.
Next slide, please. We just want to honor your time, folks, and get through this here. So we also offer personal sessions, clearing the past with your own personal dowsing session. Most sessions run an hour and a half and cover a wide base of issues, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. We also use, again, as it noted at the outset, a modality called quantum biofeedback. We also offer sessions with that and trainings. We'll also help individuals get up and running with personal dowsing instruction, and as well as doing property clearing, spiritual coaching, and supplying specialty webinars and presentations. These are the things we like to do anyway, so we're more than happy to share them and invite you to participate with us.
Absolutely. And we will be giving, not giving a talk, we'll be giving a talk. There's an upcoming International Dowsing Conference online, and that is going to be in October. So you can very shortly, it's not up on the site yet, but very shortly the information on how to access that and hear us as well as other teachers in the dowsing modalities speak on this international conference. So keep your eyes open for that too.
Claire asked a question, will you have web classes in Dowsing Beyond Duality? And definitely yes.
We will. They're not quite formed yet. We are creating some though, so we're going to be launching those early fall.
And Jean is asking, is clearing always done through a left spin? Yes.
With our system.
With our system. And making a positive with the right spin. Yeah, that's how we have learned this and how it seems to work best for us. That being said, again, the dowsing system, and by that I mean your expanded self, your guides, the masters, the beings of light, etc., are very forgiving and understanding. So it's not like you can make a mistake and use the wrong spin for the wrong situation. I think that, again, the system is very accommodating and forgiving.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, yes, you're right. That's how we do it. Next slide, please.
Okay, so we have a few products that we offer through our website, and David's holding up. You got to hold it, I think, closer to the camera. Wah, wah, wah. This is the Auric Harmonizer. It's a nifty little tool. It's a powerful, here we go. Okay, it's a powerful intentional amplifier. Sound effects do not come with it, by the way. You have to call David up for those. It's a channeled energy healing device. So it comes through this naturopath up in Montana that we happen to be fortunate enough to cross paths with because we love this little device. There's no batteries, it doesn't plug into anything, and it moves through all of your chakras, and it opens up your chakras in your field simply by moving through this dial. It's a proprietary magic blend inside of crystals and silver and other goodies, I guess, but it is pretty amazing, and most folks feel it. We've had very few people that felt nothing with it when they were trying it out. It's an 11-position dial, so it goes through all of the chakras that we talked about before, including the upper chakras, and then it has a position that goes into broadcast mode.
Like in the illustration here.
Like in the illustration. So you can actually put this on a copper plate, and whatever you want to broadcast to somebody, you could put a witness, the person's picture or their name on the Auric Harmonizer, and you can broadcast homeopathics, crystal energy, whatever it is that you want to send the frequency out to this individual, and it can be doing it 24/7. You can do individuals, you can do groups. It's a great little device. Each unit is custom made by hand, and there's the website if you want a direct connection to that, or you can link through our site also.
Okay, commercial's almost over, folks.
Almost.
Next page, please.
Those of you that are still hanging in there, thanks for hanging in for our infomercial.
We also have come across lately a light therapy system called the Avalon Quantum Series Light Therapy device, and we're really enjoying it. Both of us use it daily. Light therapy is actually gaining in popularity now as another choice besides medications in dealing with primarily pain reduction and all the elements that go into that, inflammation, etc., acidity. So light is, again, we talked about earlier how light is the substrate of all matter. It is the fundamental energy of creation, and so it has a very deep fundamental healing property, particularly effective in cellular regeneration, increasing ATP or cellular energy. It also has, again, documented anti-aging benefits for things like wrinkle reduction and scar reduction, as well as wound healing.
For instance, I'm 105. Looks pretty good, right?
Pretty hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, if you have any more questions about that, we'd be happy to share with you. And actually, wherever you live, there are people now situated that you can contact for a more closer look at this technology, and we can certainly arrange for you to have a demonstration of that in your home.
And actually, this particular light technology also has programmed in it sound therapy. So it has solfeggio frequencies, which are sacred sound, very perfected frequencies coming through. It has also Nogier frequencies, which are frequencies very specific to all the organs in our body to help them entrain back to an ideal state. And it has the Schumann wave in it, which is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. So those frequencies also come through with the lights. I've got to tell you something. This is a pretty dynamic tool. You may want to check it out. And again, come to one of the talks or something. If you contact us, we can let you know what's going on in the area, in your area about this.
A lot of the research for light therapy was actually done with the veterinarian world, where it's been embraced for quite some time.
And actually, Dr. Burke from CU has done years of research on light therapy, a lot of documentation on light therapy. We are foundationally light beings. Beneath it all, we are light. So when we are light deprived because we're indoors working on our computers, watching TV, whatever it is, we really have as a nation and even really globally become light deficient. And so this actually gives us back that light that we're missing and brings everything back into just an ideal state. Can't say enough about it, but I will because time-wise?
Last page, please. I believe it's the last page. Okay, yeah, those are the book covers of the books we've been talking about. And next page, please. Ah, here we are.
There we are sitting up. Look at that. We're right on top of the mountain. I
Sitting
love
on top of the world. Isn't that
yeah.
a song, Simon?
I think so, yeah.
So thank you so much, all of you, for attending this, and those who are watching the recording later. We hope you all had a great experience. I think we have.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much to Lauren Gailey.
Yes, thank you, Loren. This was awesome.
Who made this possible and invited us on this program. So I guess we'll just sign off by saying namaste.
Namaste, everyone.
The light in us recognizes the light in you.
And thank you so much for joining us. Dave and Erina, that was really fascinating today. I want to share myself, as we have a few more moments left. There we go. I want to share myself that emotionally I was quite moved when we did the removal. We said goodbye to those guides. I felt very emotional for that. Can you clarify why or what was going on?
Well, you had really established, quite a relationship with these guides, but not only those guides, because the guides also represent, they really just represent an extension of your consciousness, your awareness, right? So really, when we are allowing for a release of those guides and accepting the new, that's a huge leap, a shift for us in moving forward. And so it's really letting go of an aspect of ourself as well that we no longer need to hold on to.
Okay, well,
Tears of joy and tears of relief.
Yeah, big time.
And within the lesson alone, of course, those guides that we've released, they are always and infinitely a part of us, right? Because there is no separation. So even those that we may have just, felt such love from, they are still always with us. They just maybe are not needed to continue guiding us.
And the good news for you, Loren, is that you actually started out with 3 guides, and is typical with these upgrades, you now have 9.
Okay, well, I'll be sure to put them to work in my new committee. Yes.
Yeah.
And I do want to tell everyone, if you are looking for your next great read, Navigating the Collapse of Time is it. I was thrilled. The synchronicity just gave me chills here to hear that Shirley MacLaine called this the best book she's read. I full-heartedly agree, because get it on your Kindle, get it on your Nook, start reading it. It puts everything together. It talks about other books that you've read and other information and great knowledge, and you just weave it all together in an incredible story. So that's a really great one. And I do want to mention that someday I really look forward to the technology where not only can you listening today and watching this webinar, not only can you see us, but we can see you. I can certainly feel you all. Dave and Erina, would you be able to agree that yes, we can feel everyone in our circle around the world? We've got people from all over the world: Belgium, Germany, France, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong. And it's just wonderful to come together like this, because we are like-minded people, and we are here to step into our power. And these spiritual tools, like Dave and Erina gave to us today, is the way that we are going to do it. So thank you all for being here. This is the last of our Summer Event Pass online retreat series. And wow, look forward to the next series in the fall, because this is like an iceberg. We've only begun to touch into what we're all doing here in these lessons and our spirituality. And I do want to say, as we go, that iceberg image was really a great way to make us remember that we are all one, that as expressions of this great being of light in this vast oceanness, we came together and materialized into that iceberg, but we forgot that we were connected. So that was a beautiful illustration. Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone, thank you for being here. And Dave and Erina, any last comments today as we say goodbye?
Just want to acknowledge the will that got you here, that got you to this program, and acknowledge that that will, that desire to learn, to grow, to dig deeper within yourselves, it is the divine. You are already divine. That is the divine will awakening in you. So honor that you've already stepped on the path is carrying you now, and that all of these tools and all of the tools that you discover in the future are going to be serving that purpose. Because of your decision to heal and become whole, the entire universe is now supporting you. So thank you for that dedication, and hope to see you again.
Absolutely, and that even when you're having moments where you're feeling stressed out and constricted in life, it is still the divine will at work. We call that a moment of divine discontent, and sometimes that is our most powerful growing moment. And so we use these and other tools simply to help us move more fluidly with grace and ease through those moments of divine discontent as we are all waking up to, you know, what has always been true. And Loren, thank you so much for not only having us on today, but for doing what you're doing with these presentations. It's just awesome. What a great way to connect people globally, and that's where it's at right now.
Yes, and we thank you, too, for being here, and we so look forward to hearing your stories of great changes in your life through these spiritual tools. I leave you now with music from the universe, literally created by the universe, as musical composer Phil Windsor assigned musical notes to mathematical equations, and the result is beautiful music. Goodbye, everyone. Dave and Erina, thank you again. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.